here and stand right in between us, our sweet friend.
This is such a surprise.
It is a surprise, and I want you to know that this gentleman that you're going to hear from today so deserves this award. I've known Paul for a little over 15 years now, and we've been through some interesting experiences together. I want you to know how much I love you, how much I respect you, and how honored I am to gift you with the statue of responsibility today. And I'm going to let Gary take just a minute to tell all of you exactly what that means and why we have chosen to honor you today. And I want you to know that your school reached out to us originally several months ago and asked if they could purchase one to give you because they knew the meaning and they knew they wanted this to be for you. And when I asked who it was for, and they said it was you, we asked if we could donate it to honor our friend, Paul Hutchinson. Thank you.
The famous Holocaust survivor, Viktor Frankl, wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. It's one of the most powerful books on the planet. In that book, he suggested that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast be bookended, that our nation be bookended with a statue of responsibility on the West Coast. Because without responsibility, freedom, as he said, can dwindle in mere arbitrariness. I was fortunate enough to be the sculptor to design the Statue of Responsibility, and soon it's looking like it will be in the former prison site in Draper. That prison has now been removed, and isn't it interesting that something that represents responsibility will replace what was there since 1953. So we are honored to be here to present this to Paul.
And I want you to notice that it's a hand reaching up and a hand reaching down. We've all had experiences in our lives when we've been that hand that needed some help. And if we're lucky, we get to be that hand reaching down. And you have been both, my friends. I want to honor you for that.
This was a beautiful treat. I have to tell you a story. Many years ago, Leesa and I met at it was a power training type thing, similar to like a Tony Robbins event where you end up walking across the hot coals and, setting your goals and breaking through all of the things that are holding you back, one of those type of experiences. And one of the weeks that we were doing this, I wasn't able to attend, but the rest of the group was there. And what the assignment was that each individual group, there was groups of like 4 or 5 people that would get together and they would go out and try to find somebody truly in need. A family that was out of the home, or a single mother who couldn't afford her groceries, or somebody that was homeless. I mean, there's so many people in need everywhere. And so their task for the day was to go and identify somebody that was truly in need. And without using any of their own resources at all, then they had to find a way to fill that need and just organize that all together. Well, I was of course not there that day, but I had built relationships with all of these people, and I have been blessed at that time with some beautiful success in my businesses. And I'm going to talk to you about that goal setting and making a difference. And I'm going to talk to you about the movie as well. I had been blessed with some beautiful success, and I got a phone call that day from one of the groups saying, "Hey, Paul, we've got this assignment. We've identified this family, and this is what they need. We're not allowed to use our resources. Is there any way you can help?" And without hesitation, I felt like I had been unjustly blessed for so many things. So it's important for me to overly bless the lives of others. And so I said, absolutely, I'll help with that. And then half an hour later, I got another phone call from another one of the groups. And I didn't tell them I already helped with one of the others, but of course I was going to help them. They had found this single mom with this situation going on. The next day, they all got together and were talking about who they had found and the differences that they had made and the impact they were making in the lives of these other people. And then they talked about how they helped them make that happen. And one by one, these groups said that they had reached out to me and I had helped with them without even saying anything about the others. And the next time we got together, they gave me this beautiful fountain with water coming out of the top and then coming down to all kinds of different rocks coming down. And Leesa had written this beautiful poem that talked about, that was me with the water just flowing from the top and coming down and making an impact in the lives of others. When I was a little bit older than you, I had a mentor, and he said, Paul, he said, if you want to be really, really successful in life, not just financially, but in every area of your life, if you want to be truly successful, find a way to make a powerful impact in the lives of other people. He said the average person donates about 2% of their income to charity. He said, if you make a decision that it's not 2%, not 5%, not even 10% like a lot of us are used to, he said upwards of 15 to 20% of your money and 20% of your time making a difference in the lives of others, he said, you can call it God, you can call it karma, you can call it the universe. I call it God. He said, there's beautiful blessings that will come down. There's a higher power very interested in us doing good that will reward us in beautiful ways. And I made that decision back in my early 20s that that's what I was going to do, that I was going to live a life of giving until it hurts, of really making a difference. And that's why it was super easy to answer the calls of the groups that we were in back 15 years ago and respond to that. And moving forward, the successes I had in my companies were phenomenal. How does somebody become a partner, let alone a founder of a multi-billion-dollar real estate investment fund? Well, it's not me. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to any big JD MBA, Ivy League school. I didn't. I was at the University of Utah. I was studying to be a doctor. But that one decision that I made to give back and make a powerful impact in the lives of others, I believe was the crowning factor in all of the successes. And I can tell hundreds of examples. And many times those results, they don't come directly from my efforts. They come from places completely outside of where I was working. They come from the windows of heaven opening. It's beautiful what happens. And I believe in my life, this isn't a religious conversation. This is just my relationship with my Creator here, is that God knows that Paul Hutchinson has a propensity to have an ego. So he wants me to know I had nothing to do with the growth of a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So here you are at this beautiful stage in your life. And as I go through some of the things I'm going to talk about, I want you to ask yourself, what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you're wanting to be remembered for in your life? As the end of your life and you're looking back and you're sitting there with your kids and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, what is it that you want them to remember you for? Is it just that you made a whole bunch of money and bought everybody a nice car? Or is it that you made a difference in the world while you were here? Find something you're passionate about. Something, whatever it is. Save the trees, save the whales, save the kids, whatever it is. You find something that you're passionate about and have that as part of your long-term goals. Now, it's okay. It's okay to own a nice car. It's okay to own a plane. It's okay to own a helicopter. It's okay to have a basketball court in your basement, right? These were all goals that were on my vision board that I was able to create. There's nothing wrong with pursuing financial independence. In fact, it's very difficult to make a real big splash in the world if you don't have some resources to work with. So yes, it's okay. It's okay for you to dream big. But like I said on the intro video, I use things, nice cars and boats and cars and planes and whatever. I use things to motivate myself to do the right thing long enough, build successful companies, until I realized the real reason to be doing it was not things. It was making a difference. So just ask yourself, how am I planning to make an impact in this world? You're at a beautiful age where it's so important to try to identify what that looks like, and it's not just the vehicle to get there. I mean, it's not just the vehicle to get there, it's the destination. That's more important. I have a sister who used to be a travel agent. And if I called her up and I said, hey, Tiffany, I really want to be on a 737 airplane tomorrow at 3 o'clock. She would say, well, where do you want to go? And I say, well, on top of that, I want to make sure that the plane has, a red tail on it and 2 engines on each side, not just one, She would say, well, where do you want to go, right? So many times we're so stuck on our occupation and what that's going to look like, instead of identifying what the end result needs to be. Take some time and ask yourself where I want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. Identify what that lifestyle looks like. The home you want to be in, the car you want to drive, the difference you want to make in the world, the relationship that you have with your family. These are all things that are the destination. Once you clearly identified that, then the vehicle will show up. If I'm like, instead, I call up my sister, I say, hey, you know what? I really want to be in Hawaii tomorrow by 7 o'clock. I've got to speak there. Then she'll say, okay, you need to be at the airport at 7 a.m. and you need to be at this terminal. And it's irrelevant to me what the vehicle looks like, right? It doesn't matter if there's 2 engines or 1 on each side. It doesn't matter what the color of the tail is. It doesn't matter. Because whatever vehicle is there is going to take me to my desired destination. And that's the mindset that it's important for you to be in at this point, is to identify what that looks like. So let me touch on the movie, because a lot of you, that's why you came and said, okay, this guy is here. So I am the primary investor in Sound of Freedom. I'm also the executive producer of Sound of Freedom. How many people have seen the movie Sound of Freedom? So a little more than half. Okay, so this is a true story of a bunch of different rescue missions. It kind of highlights one that we did in Colombia about 10 years ago. And I'll tell you my personal experience with that, and then we'll tie everything in together. So about 10 years ago, I had been really focused on building successful companies. I was doing a lot of charity work. I had served on multiple boards of directors of different charities. I had chosen to focus my attention with what I consider the truly innocent children. I had donated a lot of time at everything from the Primary Children's Hospital to One Life at a Time. I served 7 years on the board of directors for Make-A-Wish. It's a beautiful organization that helps families and children who are struggling with life-threatening illnesses. And at that time, I got a phone call from our Attorney General. And he said, Paul, I know that you focus a lot of energy on helping kids. He said, I need to talk to you about something that's pretty dark. It's the fastest growing criminal enterprise in the world, and good people don't even know that it's happening. He said, I'm talking about human trafficking. And I thought, that doesn't make sense. I thought slavery disappeared at the time of Abraham Lincoln. And I couldn't imagine that would exist in this world today. And he said, even worse than that, Paul, he says, I'm talking about child trafficking. I thought, you're right, that is dark. People selling kids. And then he told me it got even worse when he told me that what they were selling them for. He said, I have a Homeland Security agent, a former agent that's identified some children in Cartagena, Colombia, that he wants to rescue, and he needs some money to make that happen. And I had connections with a lot of the wealthy people here in Utah. I've been raising money for our fund and managing their money for them. And so, we had an event where we had some good people there that he could meet. And we helped to make that happen. A few weeks later, he called me and he said, Paul, I'm in Cartagena, Colombia right now. There's not just 20 children here, there's more than 50. And there's easily more than 100 children that are tied to other trafficking rings in other cities here in Colombia. He said, we have a plan. We believe we can rescue all of these victims on the same day, at the same time. He said, but I need your help. And big ego me at the time, I'm like, well, how much do you need? I'll write you a check. And he said, I need you. Can you be in Colombia in 2 days? He said, I have to have somebody who can effectively negotiate a multi-million-dollar real estate deal with the traffickers. These guys need a few $1,000,000 to build out this child resort brothel type of a thing. They believe they can make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children to wealthy Americans. I got this pit in my stomach. I was so sick. I was in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. I was raising money for my fund. I was at this conference. We have third generation billionaire families, this posh bubble that I was in. And I asked him, I said, well, 2 days in Colombia, I don't have time to get back home to change and whatever else. I said, what do I need to dress as? He says, you need to dress as a wealthy real estate investor, kind of a playboy type of a thing. And I'm on the phone. I look down. I've got $2,000 cufflinks on. I've got a $50,000 watch on. I've got a suit that cost more than my first car when I first got married. And on the inside of the suit was really conservative here. On the inside, it was like bright pink. I'm like, this is the outfit. Right? I can make this work. And so I said, okay, yeah, I can be there. Absolutely. So 2 days later, I'm face to face with the darkest part of humanity, with these traffickers that were selling children. Now, here's the thing, guys. I thought, in your mind, you're thinking, traffickers selling children, what do they look like? They've got tattoos on their face and 3 earrings in their noses, right? That's what we're thinking. The first trafficker I met was a businessman, clean cut, polo shirt, nice car. The second I met was a beautiful woman. She was running this fake modeling agency that was convincing parents to let their kids go into what would end up being sexual exploitation of these kids. I realized over the next 10 years, in leading over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries, I realized that the common thread with almost all of these guys wasn't tattoos on their faces and earrings in their noses. That common thread was arrogance and greed and lust. And I had to take a few steps back after a few years of this and ask myself, okay, I'm not trafficking kids. I'm actually helping and rescuing them, and I'm not doing anything illegal. But how has arrogance and greed and lust negatively affected my relationships and my relationship with my Creator, my relationship with my families, my relationship with myself? And I looked around at some of the friends groups that I had and identified some of them that were just toxic in how they were approaching the world. And I realized that was something, even though the outside world saw me as this huge success, huge company, thousands of employees, all this, beauty and glamour and everything else. But how was I really happy inside? I was on my second marriage. It was going for a divorce. It was all of this negativity. I asked myself, wow, if I'm fighting this evil on that front, what other things are contributing to it in some way? And we can talk about that in a minute. So I get this phone call. I'm down there. I'm face to face with these traffickers. And halfway through the meeting, one of them leans forward and he says, Pablo, I have a gift for you. I said, really? What's your gift? And he leans forward and he hands me his phone. And there's a picture of an 11-year-old child on his phone. He said, this is Princess. She's 11. She's still a virgin. And she's my gift for you for this party. And he started talking about these horrific things that could be done to this little girl. That moment changed my life. Up until then, I was, I'll pay for this thing, I'll play this role. But that was the first time that I saw What I knew was a trafficked child being presented to me by somebody like that. In the movie, if you guys have seen the movie, my character is played by the producer of the movie, Eduardo Verasti. Halfway through, when Jim Caviezel is like talking to his wife, and he's like, "Oh, I need to, I want to make this happen. The only way I can do so is if I can convince Pablo to help fund it." Well, I'm Pablo in real life, and in reality, we took about 8 different rescue missions and about 20 different operators, and brought all those missions and the stories of those operators together into just a handful of characters. So the real heroes are the hidden heroes that are still out there in the field, that are still doing these missions. And I honor them. But in the movie, I said no in the beginning. My character said, "No, I don't want to go, and too risky." And it wasn't until Jim Caviezel gave my driver a picture to give to me. And this picture was this 11-year-old girl that they called Princess. Her name in the movie was Rocio. And that was, if you've seen it, you'd understand how that all goes. Well, so in the movie, I was in the car. In real life, I was already there, face to face with these guys. But that galvanized my commitment to make a difference in the world, especially in rescuing that child, using whatever resources I needed to make that happen. A couple weeks later, we had set all this up. I told him, well, back up right there. He said, this is Princess and all these horrible things. And I realized, wow, if we could get these kids out before they were ever hurt in the first place, that would be a miracle. And something that he said made me realize he had more than her. I said, "Fuego," I said, "You took delivery. You have more, this." Well, he called them 0 kilometers, And I said, "You have more like her?" He goes, "Oh no." He says, "Those ones are too expensive." It's too expensive. I'm already paying this guy $25,000 for this party, $500 per child, for a minimum of 50 children just for 2 hours in the afternoon. He goes, "Jefe, you already paid $25,000. You want to have this one, and that little one's going to cost you maybe $10,000 more." I was legitimately pissed at him. He was talking about these children like they're commodities. And again, my ego self comes out. I put my hands on my chest. I'm like, "You don't think I can afford an extra $10,000? He says, "Oh, no, Jefe, no." I said, "I want every one of those children at the party." I said, "And they better be virgins when they get there. Don't touch them or it's over. Do you understand? They're for me, not for you." He goes, "Oh, yeah, Jefe, I understand." 2 weeks later, after we had met with the U.S. Embassy, the Colombian federal agents, they provided 40 agents for us. 4 of them were like our waiters and our maids and our cooks. They weren't very good cooks, but they were armed, right? And these guys ended up bringing to Cartagena 54 children. Now, we had 3 separate cities at the same day: Armenia, Colombia, Medellin, Colombia, and Cartagena. That day, we helped rescue over 120 victims. One of the largest child rescue missions in one day in history. And we're sitting there at this table. They brought the children in, and the children are sitting there. We put them in a separate place in the house because they were already traumatized enough. We didn't want them seeing the money changing hands and the guns coming in, all of this stuff. And we needed to get on undercover camera. We needed to get every single one of these traffickers to verbally say why they were there and what was going on. So the kids never had to stand trial. We had all the evidence right there. And we're sitting there at this table. And one of the traffickers gets up and he said, "Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that I brought you." And he went in the house where the children were and had like a grass roof so we could kind of hear what was going on. And we could hear some of the children crying. They were so scared of meeting these men who were going to defile them. A few minutes later, he comes out and he has 4 children. All virgins, first time, scared to death. 3 little girls and 1 little boy. This little boy was 11. This is hard, guys, but it's important you understand this stuff happens and what we can do as humanity to fix it. This little boy was 11. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared. What kind of monster thinks that that's attractive? Every single cell in me, everything in me, wanted to just hug these kids and say, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be fine. We couldn't say that. I'm sitting on a chair. They bring this little girl out, the one that they showed me in the picture. And I'm this tall sitting down, and she is eye level with me, standing up. And all I could see was fear in her eyes. Her makeup had been smeared from crying while they were inside the house. She was trying to hold herself together. I took her little hands. Her hands were shaking. I said, "¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name?" She didn't answer. I'm sure it's because her real name wasn't Princess. She was so scared trying to figure out what the traffickers wanted her to say. I said, "Está bien, it's okay." Told the traffickers, send him back at her in the house. We still have some business to do first before the party starts. I made a commitment to myself, to my Creator, to that child, and to all of humanity that I was going to dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. The most beautiful moment of my life was after the agents came and stormed the party, arrested the traffickers, arrested us. You know, the bad guys think that we were extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. And we're laying there on the sand with ants crawling on us, and they're putting handcuffs. And the most beautiful moment of my life up to that time was after the 30 Child Protective Services people came in with the children. And they started laughing, singing with the children just to calm them down. And that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I've ever heard, especially compared to the crying half an hour before. I started crying. That's why we named the movie The Sound of Freedom, is that joyous sound of those children in comparison to the crying. And I turned to and as we were being let off, they weren't supposed to tell the children that we were their rescuers. Somebody must have said something. Because as we were leaving, one of those little girls, the one that was standing there in front of me, she was there with some of her little friends. She was crying again, but she was waving and smiling. And she said in her broken English, she said, "Thank you, Americans." I just broke down. And I said to the agent who was with me, I said, "I've spent my entire life pursuing money, making rich people richer, trying to make a difference. I want to make a difference here. I want to help these truly innocent." You know, when I was doing my charity work in my early 20s, I was like, okay, where do I give away money? Do I go downtown and give it to a guy who's on the side of the street asking me for drug money? I don't. And back then, I didn't know how to differentiate. Now, today, I'm matured to the point where I realize that even some of them are in positions completely outside of their control. But I knew for a fact that those children were in a place that they couldn't control. And that if there was something that we could do to make a difference, I wanted to be there. So I turned to that agent and I said, I want to make it. I want to write you a check. What do you need? How can I help? And he said this. He said, "Paul," he said, "unfortunately, a large part of the demand for parties like this every weekend in cities all around Latin America, a large part of that demand comes from wealthy, big ego businessmen, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, He said that a lot of them look and talk and dress like you. He said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. And that's exactly what happened. I continued to help with the foundation. And I had many, many, many beautiful stories of the light and the darkness. Guys, this is not, I have a certain set of skills from a previous life that makes me somewhat safe in a dangerous place, but it didn't make it any less safe. These guys were selling 8, 9, 10-year-old children, 14-year-old children. If they knew who we were, we would be dead in a heartbeat. There was one time that we went to Haiti. Now, Haiti is a mess right now. So much corruption, so much crime, so much fighting everywhere. And a lot of it is coming from this story I'm going to tell you where this all started. We realized that Haiti was one of the worst places for trafficking in our hemisphere. There's so much going on there. A lot of corruption that went all the way to the top. So my son had just returned from 2 years being away, and while he was gone, I had gotten a divorce with his mom, so he was trying to figure out if I was still a good guy or not. So 2 days left after he gets back from his mission, I put him on a Gulfstream jet with me. We go back to Texas where he served and pick up Glenn Beck and fly to Haiti because I wanted my son to see the work that we've been doing and the charities and the kids, etc. So Glenn wanted to film some of the children that were in the orphanages and stuff there. So we were 2 or 3 days there, and then it was Saturday night, about 10 o'clock at night. We were leaving at 6 a.m. the next morning. And the Homeland Security agent came to me and he said, Paul, I've had teams on the ground for the last few days. They haven't found any good connections. You're one of the best we have. Can you go out tonight? I knew that meant I get no sleep. I had led about 30 different independent missions that, they all come together into one rescue, about 5 or 6 at a time, sometimes 8 different times we go undercover. And so this would have marked the first one of this big op. And so I went out that night. These guys are, Navy SEALs, Green Berets. They got, big old tattoos and muscles and earrings, and I'm just me, and it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. We hadn't found any connections with any traffickers. And I said, guys, can I take lead? Are you good with that? And they said, yeah. You say you're really good at this. I want to see what you do. I said, okay, I need you to follow exactly what I say. And again, please don't get me wrong. None of this is religious at all. This is tying into that still small voice of truth that will guide every one of us in our life. I said, guys, here's how it works. I had led a whole bunch of missions up to this point. I said, we found traffickers every single time. I said, I need you to understand how I understand belief or faith versus fear. Most people think that, faith is go to church and ask God to fix things in your life that you don't believe are going to be fixed anyway. That's not it. It's the unwavering conviction that what I want to have will happen. I'm going to be accepted into Harvard. I'm going to have a happy family. I'm going to find these kids. I said it's super hard for most people to have unwavering belief and conviction about anything because there's so many other factors that are wavering them. I said, it's easy for me to have unwavering conviction that we're going to find these kids because there's not a spiritual entity, a higher power in the universe that's okay with an 8-year-old being sold. So I said, I'm going to simply tune in and listen. And that's what happened. I says, okay, just drive. These guys are, okay, dude, whatever. I just drive. And I'm just listening. And I said, stop right there. He says, that black alley, that motorcycle gang, yeah, right there. He said, what are you going to do? I said, that guy knows something. I can feel it. He goes, this is super dangerous. We've got to survey the area first. I said, no, we don't have time for that. They're going to be gone. In fact, you guys need to stay in the van. I'm going to go talk to him myself. He says, are you stupid, Paul? I said, look, I'll buy you pink panties when we get home. I don't have 2 weeks to find out who's selling kids. I've got tonight. And so I got out. This guy pulls up his shirt, and there's a gun that's poked right here. It's in his pants. And I'm just listening. I pull out a $100 bill. I hand it to him. He says, what's that for? I says, that's for you. You keep it. I said, now I got another one for you if you can help me with something. I've got a friend that's coming in a few weeks. This is what he's looking for. And he says, I know somebody. I knew he did. And through that connection, we worked our way up to, I went in a couple other times, some other operations to try to find these traffickers. And we ended up connecting with the top trafficking rings in the entire country. In fact, so high level that they ended up paying $80,000 to be let out of prison to 4 corrupt judges. Put that into perspective, the average income in Haiti is like $500 a year. 80,000 is like millions. But we flew the first lady and the diplomats to the US and were able to fix that. One of the traffickers we took down was a lady by the name of Cho. She had been involved in trafficking for a long, long time. She was what I call a level 3 trafficker, the ones that physically control and hold the kids. And we were in this super dangerous area of town. There was these level 2 traffickers that brought us in to connect us with her. She sticks a key in this steel door. It's about 4+ feet wide, about 7+ feet tall. Opens this steel door, and the first thing I see is this dirt hallway with dimly lit lights and multiple cell doors down the left-hand side. No windows, no doors. No windows on the door itself, just these small doors. And she sticks a key in one of these steel doors, opens it up, and the first thing I see is it's not even a bed. It's like a steel plank that's held to the wall with a chain, so you can fold it up. And there was a dirty, dingy blanket that was sitting there on that. To the left was a concrete block. There was a little girl sitting on that block. They did a documentary on this, and this little girl, she was, in the documentary, she was 14. She was taken when she was 7. Her parents were killed in the earthquake, and nobody even knew she was alive. That little girl didn't speak for 2 weeks after we rescued her. I wasn't there, but what I was told is that the very first words she said were, I didn't think anybody would come. Because she gave up hope 6-7 years before. And the miracle was that 2 guys from Utah, me and Andy, were there at 2 a.m. We were the first men in 7 years that walked through that door that didn't have the intention of hurting her. Now she's in a healthy family, back in school. Every one of these kids have a goal, have a dream. Some of them have just given up on that light. So there is a beautiful light at the end of the tunnel with all of these. Our focus now, we separated from that original foundation about 5 years ago and started building the Child Liberation Foundation. I met my wife in Haiti. She's now the executive director of the Child Liberation Foundation. In fact, little fun side note. She hates this story. This is a good one, though. Has anybody ever heard of Henry Cavill? Who knows who Henry Cavill is? Okay, you guys know? Okay, he's the actor who plays Superman, right? The Batman, Superman, whatever. So he's the actor who plays Superman. So a lot of people have told me, Paul, you're rich and you go undercover. You're probably Batman. No, well, in this case, I kind of am, right? Because in Batman, Superman, didn't Batman win, right? So Henry Cavill, they weren't dating serious, but he was at her work every day for a couple months. They went on 2 or 3 dates, and then she met me. Stole Superman's girlfriend. So anyway, she is the gem of my life and has now taken the Child Liberation Foundation to a point where they are creating safe houses in different places all around the world. They're putting together programs that governments and schools and religious leaders everywhere can use to help keep the children safe. These kids are super broken when they've been abused like that, especially if they don't have a healthy family to come back to. And it doesn't take just 3 or 4 months. It takes years. And so, we're buying different properties in different places. We're putting together these programs that can be expanded and making a powerful impact in the lives of other people. So at this stage in your life, you're at an amazing point. So beautiful that the future can be. All you have to do is decide exactly what it is that you want. I'll tell you one little side story. This is super fun. So my first wife, the mother of my kids, wonderful woman. When we first got married, she was in the high school drill team, and then she was at the University of Utah on their Crimson Line, their dance team at the halftime of football, stuff like that, right? And she was a model, and I was a concert pianist, and I was studying to be a surgeon. And then we got in a major car accident, and I severed all the tendons in my hand, and they didn't know I couldn't play the piano, and I for sure couldn't have the dexterity to be a surgeon. Well, she broke her pelvic bone. She couldn't dance. She couldn't exercise. And she started gaining weight. We got pregnant with our twins, wonderful boys. Got pregnant with our third little boy. Fast forward, at 29 years old, I was speaking to a group of young entrepreneurs and about you can be and do and have anything you want in life. All you have to do is decide what it is. Just decide. Just put it on paper. Most people spend more time planning out their next vacation than they do planning out their life, right? So I was doing this motivational seminar to these young entrepreneurs, and at the end, we're driving home, and she said to me, Paul, I was listening to you. I want to do something great with my life. I'm like, wonderful, what it is. And I asked her this, and ask yourself this question. If time and money were no issue, you had all the time and all the money in the world, and you knew you couldn't fail. If it's creating a global movement with a new movie coming out, if it's rescuing kids, if it's making $1 billion, whatever it is, if you knew you couldn't fail and you had all the time and money to do so, what would you dream? So I asked her that. I said, Tiffany, if time and money were no issue and you knew you couldn't fail, what would you dream? She said, you're going to laugh at me. Now realize at this point, she is 230 pounds. When we got married, she was 112, right? She's more than double the woman that I married, right? 230 pounds, mother of 3. I said, if you could dream anything and you couldn't fail, what would you dream? She goes, you're going to laugh at me. I said, I will not. She said, since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an NFL cheerleader. NFL cheerleader, right? She says, I think I want to do that. I'm looking at my 230-pound wife. I'm like, you go, girl, right? Awesome, And after talking for the next few weeks, I realized she was serious. She wanted this dream. She said, when I was 14 years old, I danced at a halftime game at a 49ers game, and I've always wanted to be a San Francisco 49ers cheerleader. And now, realize she lives in Utah. She's a mother of 3. She's 230 pounds. She's 29 years old, right? So I said, when I realized she was serious, I knew the importance of visualization. How did we create a global movement with the Sound of Freedom? We knew that's why we were investing in the beginning, and we visualized it because that would create a power. Fighting the kids, the same thing. Tuning into that unwavering conviction. So for her, to help her in that unwavering conviction, for Christmas, a few weeks later, I gave her a picture. I went online, I found an Adobe Photoshop program, and then I found some pictures of some San Francisco 49ers cheerleaders. Same hair as her, but of course body and face different. And I superimposed, I put her face on that picture, and I put at the bottom, Tiffany Hutchinson, San Francisco 49ers cheerleader. And I framed it. I gave it to her for Christmas, and she started crying when she opened it. She put it on her bedstand. And every single night before she went to bed, she looks at this picture and visualizes her being that person. Every morning when she woke up, before she even got out of bed, she pulled it off her nightstand and she looked at it and visualized being that person. She started exercising 2 to 4 hours a day, every day for the next year. And there was 500 girls trying out for the San Francisco 49ers cheerleaders that year. 500 girls, 3 spots available. She was the first pick. She was the only one that was over 25 years old, only one with kids, only one living. It cost us $60,000 in plane tickets just to fly her out for practices and games. But what does that tell you? All you have to do is dream it, whatever it is. You can achieve anything that you put your heart and your mind to. Anything. Anything. When I was sitting there in front of that little girl and looking at her in her eyes, and I made a commitment that I was going to dedicate my life to eradicating that evil, and I realized that we couldn't take millions of people to see what we had seen, but we could put it in a format that would really touch people's hearts. That's what we did, with the visualization that it was going to create a global movement. And that's what's happening today, is that global movement. Now, there's arrows being shot at me every day. There's people that are saying, oh, this is whatever. Guess what? My heart's in the right place. And the focus long term is to make sure that no child ever has to go through what that little girl did in front of me. So I'm going to end with this, like I started. Find something you're passionate about. I love your passion project. You know, it's this Statue of Liberty on one coast and the Statue of Responsibility on the other coast. And you've been working on that dream for many years and you're not losing sight of it, which is so beautiful. Find something big that you can make an impact in this world. See it, feel it, believe it, and it will be yours. Thank you for sharing your time.